We're so used to the typical healthcare interactions that we see day to day. There's kind of a typical rhythm to it. And I want to kind of remove that. And when you're just over there and you're just typing and you're not looking and you're typing again, I feel like it's a little bit disingenuous, and you want to be asking them questions, looking your patient in the eye and just listening to them. The last thing I'll typically do is start basically addressing what could be objections before they come up. Some of those objections are just questions that could derail things. Questions around, is this safe? Right? Is this going to cause cancer? Is it going to cause heart disease? We want to be able to nail those questions probably before they're even asked. You don't have to impress them. The idea is to provide unbelievable value to these people. Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. This is Nico Misleh here, and this is the Nico Misleh Podcast. And I'm so glad you're here today because I'm going to talk a little bit about the sales process, so to speak, when it comes to hormone replacement therapy. So many providers ask me, Nico, what are the things you say and do when it comes to helping your patients understand the value of hormone replacement therapy and why they would want to pursue TRT or HRT? Why would they choose your clinic? What are those things that stand out? And so let me kind of walk you through a little bit of this process. And I want to kind of share with you some of the language and analogies that I use to help patients really get a better sense of the picture of what they're walking into, so to speak. First and foremost, I'm a big fan of when you're sitting across from your patient, think of this as less of a healthcare interaction. Okay. I know that sounds kind of goofy, but I think we're so used to the typical healthcare interactions that we see day to day, or maybe that we were involved with, whether that was like a primary care office or an OB-GYN office. There's kind of a typical rhythm to it. And I want to kind of remove that. I want you to try to stay off your computer as much as possible and just look the patient in the eye. Okay. If you're one of those people who you like to chart during the appointment, that's fine. But take chunks of time out of your interaction with that patient where it's just you staring down the barrel of the gun, looking your patient in the eye and just listening to them. That differentiates us so much from other places. And when you're just over there and you're just typing and you're not looking and you're typing again and not looking at them, I feel like it's a little bit disingenuous, and it reminds me of those interactions that I've had as a patient with previous providers that I didn't feel like I got a lot of value out of. Okay. I know that sounds really simple, but I'm telling you as someone who I really like to get my work done. So I like to try to chart and talk with my patients. And man, it made such a big difference when I could just kind of hold my hands together and just listen to them, even if it's 10, 15 minutes, and then maybe just take a couple quick notes, come right back, listen, all that sorts of stuff. Okay. The next thing you want to do is also make sure that, and this is important why, again, you don't want to be just typing the whole time, is you want to be asking them questions. You want to be interviewing them and make it a consultation. Okay. Again, think about it less as a healthcare interaction and more as a consultation. Why are you here? Why now? What has changed? What has gotten you to a point where you said, you know what? I've seen 4 or 5 other people. No one's helped me. I've tried all these different things and I want to come sit in front of Nico and see if he can help me. So these are questions that you want to drill down. Okay. You want to get as deep as you possibly can. That's why we have an hour-long appointment. Try as best you can to dig deeper. If you have a patient who's in front of you and they're saying they're really depressed, how are you depressed? Why are you depressed? What does it mean that you're depressed? Can you describe to me exactly the things that you feel when you're depressed? What things have you tried? What things have you not tried? What things have been helpful? What things have not been helpful? Who has helped you in that journey where you're trying to overcome those symptoms of depression? And have they been helpful or have they been harmful, right? The more detail I can get out of that, the better. Because again, I'm going to use this stuff, and I'm not saying this in a nasty way, but I'm going to use it as leverage. The more knowledge I have about you and your specific condition, the more power, so to speak, I have by the end of the consultation, and the more confidence I'll have to say, I know exactly how I can help you, why I can help you, why I should help you, why you should let me help you, why you should think this is a great idea. Because also, I might listen to them and think, oh, you know what? I'm really not the person for you. I know what you think you need, and let me tell you what I think you need, and where we might clash a little bit. Again, I want to be helpful for these people. I do not want to be taking their hard-earned money and time away from them if I think I might not be a great fit for them in one way or another. That could be personally, right? Maybe we're just not going to get along for some reason. Maybe that's financially, maybe that whatever it is. I also just want to make sure that I'm providing the best value and service to that patient. And so the more I learn about them, the more leverage I have to really make a conscientious decision for the benefit of both parties, myself and the patient. So that's kind of the initial portion of the consultation, right? So I get to learn about them and all that good stuff, take some notes. And then obviously we're going to go through their lab work. And I've talked about this 1,000 times, guys. Be really, really, really detailed here. You don't have to impress them, educate them, just educate them. The idea is to provide unbelievable value to these people. They have never probably ever in their lives been told, line by line what each lab means and why did we check it and what are we seeing here and what is normal versus optimal, right? So of course you are going to, by default, just by educating them, you are going to wow them and impress them, which is, I think, really important when it comes to, the whole patient journey, the whole environment. The reason that sets you apart from many other clinics is because you're going to take the time to do that. Okay. So that should just be a baked in thing. Okay. That shouldn't be, if you aren't doing that, please make sure you're doing that. Don't just breeze over their labs real quick. Okay. Make an effort to show up there. Okay. So we go through their labs. And now at this point, usually we start having the conversation of, getting towards the tail end where we're going to start talking about pricing. But the last thing I'll typically do before we get into pricing is start basically addressing what could be objections before they come up. Okay. So I'll touch on this. Of course, some of those objections are just questions that could derail things. And I don't want you to become derailed. Are questions around, is this safe? Right? Is this going to cause cancer? Is it going to cause heart disease? Is it going to cause me to have a stroke and clot and die? Is this going to cause me to, have my right arm fall off? We want to be able to nail those questions probably before they're even asked. Okay. So, do less of do you have any questions around? Just be like, hey, I just want to go over some things with you that a lot of patients ask me, and I want you to feel really confident in this. You're already guessing what's on their mind. And again, it's an education thing, but at the same time, you are going to, again, wow them and impress them when they don't even have to verbalize their fears or concerns. You already know it. You've seen this before. This is not new to you, and you're going to nail this for them every single time. So again, we go over all those potential fears, right? The stigmas of HRT. Am I going to be on this forever and ever? Absolutely. And you know why? Because it's amazing for you. And this is all the things that we're going to get from HRT. And I want you to start with, when you go through these things, I want you to start considering using more analogies. Analogies are, frankly, the way great communicators help people understand complex problems and issues and things of that nature. Okay. When you're sitting across from a patient and you're using all these big sciencey words and you're talking about hormones, again, for us as providers, this feels like second nature. The word testosterone means so much more to me as a provider than probably it does to my patient, right? They have a very narrow view of what testosterone is and a narrow view of what it does for them. So I like to try to utilize analogies more and more and more and more and more. Okay, so examples of that could be, again, if someone asked me, hey, Nico, I like the sound of HRT, but I'm just nervous because, I heard that you have to be on it forever. Is that true? How are you going to answer that? Now, you could logically say, well, absolutely, yes, you would want to continue taking HRT for the rest of your life because all the benefits come with HRT. That's what we've seen in the randomized control trials. Now, that would be a very logical and actually a very appropriate response. But I don't feel as a patient that really answered my question. It kind of feels like you're just, I don't know, blowing me off a little bit or just like, yeah, well, it's in the data, so don't worry about it. I'd rather say something like, well, that's such a good question because I think we need to reframe that. Let's picture you're a type 1 diabetic. Do you know what type 1 diabetes is? It's okay if you don't. Type 1 diabetes is a disease, right, where your pancreas basically stops working. And your pancreas is what's in charge of making something called insulin, which is a peptide, but it's kind of like a hormone. And that insulin is in charge of regulating our blood sugars and our energy and all these sorts of things. And so if you don't make that particular hormone, you start feeling really sick and you lose a lot of weight, and you're just not going to have a really good quality of life. You're not going to be able to eat really normal foods, and you're probably going to live a life that's full of suffering and probably die earlier than you should, which is a total travesty. But the good news is that if you're diabetic, we have insulin, right? We make insulin, which is a hormone, and we can give that to you. And you can have this amazing, totally normal life. I don't know if you know any type 1 diabetics, but now they have these amazing pumps and they pump insulin and they can see their numbers. And isn't that amazing? Isn't that so helpful? Now, of course, if that person stopped taking insulin, well, they'd slide right back to what they were doing. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to keel over and die day one, but it's just not going to be a great quality of life. Does that make sense? So again, I used a medical analogy. It's not something that's way far off the tracks here, but more people understand what type 1 diabetes is or have some sense of what that is. And they've heard of insulin before and they know it's really powerful and life-saving. So, okay, that's really helpful. What's another analogy I could use? Let's get outside of medicine now for a second. I like to use cars. I don't know why. I'm not even a huge car guy, but I like using cars as an analogy because we've grown up with them and we know what they are. And for better or for worse, we've had lemons and all that stuff. But when it comes to cars, okay, if someone says, Nico, can I do hormones naturally? Like, can I just take some vitamins and minerals, right? Why do I need hormone replacement therapy? Can you help me just with supplements? Well, Sarah, that's such a good question. At 25 years old, absolutely. At 45, it becomes kind of a different story. Let's think about a car here for a second, okay? Let's say, I buy a car. It's a 1965 Ford Mustang, which, by the way, is a really cool car, right? And it's beautiful, but it's old. I mean, it's from the 60s. And even though the owner has changed the oil on time, regularly and diligently, he washes his car, he keeps it in the garage, all the things that you should do to keep that car healthy and well. Well, it's been decades since that car was made, and you can't tell me that over time the parts have gotten a little rusty or oxidized, maybe a little dirty. And so all of a sudden now the question is not, are you doing all the right things in terms of the oil change and waxing so the paint stays nice and pretty? Those are things that are just kind of a given. But at some point in time during that car's lifespan, in order to keep it really healthy and strong, we're probably going to start need to replacing parts. And is that a bad thing? Well, of course not, right? If we love this car and it's still in really good shape, it just needs a little extra oomph. Adding a new carburetor or a fuel pump or brakes, that's just a great idea. It's a great thing to do because it's going to extend the life of this car dramatically. Now, it's still going to be an old car, right? But it's still in good shape and we can still get a lot of use out of it and a lot of fun. Now, if you stop replacing those parts, well, it might be drivable, but it might not be a very pleasant drive and it might break down more often. And eventually at some point, it might just kind of completely poop out. And so if it were up to me, I think I'd rather replace those parts because I can get so much more value out of that car that I love and that I want to cherish and I want to even potentially even pass down to my grandkids. Right? The more you can start talking and speaking to them in these types of analogies, the more they can kind of help associate their transformation. Here's something that's old. You can't make it any better just by giving vitamins and supplements. It's past that time. It's not to say that those are bad things, right? It's not to say you don't want to wax your car or get it cleaned up every now and then, but at some point in time, we're probably going to need to do something a little bit more drastic, a little bit more interventional, but also hopefully that keeps you from breaking down on the middle of the highway, right? Which would be like a catastrophic injury. And maybe that's the end of that car. Do you see how helpful that is? I know that when you're listening to this, you're picturing all these things too, right? You're picturing the color of the car and what it looks like, and maybe you're even comparing it to yourself. I think that is super, super, super valuable. The best salesmen and women that I've ever met, and the best communicators, and believe me, if you're a great salesman or a saleswoman, you are usually a great communicator. They have ways of telling stories, of helping highlight transformation, and especially of using analogies to help get their point across, especially on something that is so complex and deep like hormone replacement therapy in the human body. It's not an easy thing to talk about. So I hope that's helpful. Okay, so we're using our analogies. We've gone over some of those very early, I don't want to necessarily call them objections, but, things that patients are going to question. And we don't want these patients going home and Googling stuff and feeling like they weren't told the whole truth. That's why you want to make sure you're nailing cancer, heart disease, whatever other things that we know aren't true. We want to make sure we're nailing that for those patients. So now comes the point in which we can say, okay, we've gotten through the gist of the kind of the clinical side. And now we need to talk about pricing. Okay. Now, again, there's a variety. I've talked about this 1,000 times, right? You can have your pricing on your website. You could be transparent about it. You could have it hidden. And maybe that's something you bring up in the clinic. Doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, the point of pricing is going to come up. And one thing I want you to practice doing is like breathing through this and putting your body and mind in a position that gives off confidence. Okay. So what a lot of people subconsciously do is they kind of raise their shoulders up a little bit, or maybe they kind of draw their shoulders in, right? Like they're kind of concave in their chest. That kind of gives off that weak position. Maybe they start, speaking a little bit differently. Like you kind of have that heightened emotion sense about you. It's not a good look. It really, really isn't a good look. So when you're getting into that pricing point, I want you to consider like, all right, I'm going to readjust myself on my chair. I'm going to put my shoulders back and I'm going to pull my head up a little bit. And now I want to just breeze right into the conversation because I feel super confident. I've answered all the questions and I'm excited. I'm ready to get this going. Aren't you? It takes some practice and it takes some time, but you really, 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 really want to attempt to rehearse this even if possible with like a spouse or a friend or maybe even a handful of patients, right? The more you can practice this, the better. I firmly believe that. And I know it's not the same when you're practicing it with your spouse or a friend necessarily, but the more reps you can get in, the better it is, right? Remember, the action itself is what builds competency, which builds confidence. So you have to take action. You have to do this. So if you're like, Nico, I'm a really introverted person. I'm really shy. I get really uncomfortable when it comes to sales. That's okay. You're supposed to feel that way. Like not practically nobody is born feeling super confident when it comes to talking about pricing and literally trying to take someone's money, right? That's just a natural human thing and probably good for you. So practice kind of physically putting yourself in a position that feels confident. Even if you don't feel confident necessarily inside, that position itself is going to open up your mind to the sense that, I am strong and I'm capable and I'm confident and I can freaking do this. Okay. So some of that body language is really helpful. When you get into talking about the pricing itself, what I want you to really kind of focus on again here is, focus on the transformation that's going to happen. Okay. And all the value that's added in here, right? We want to highlight the value offer to our patients. What are they going to get out of this? Why is this like a no-brainer for them? Right. And again, it doesn't really matter where you're priced at, whether it's, a monthly membership at $100 a month or $300 a month, whether it's a fee for service thing. Again, it doesn't really matter too much here. The principle remains the same. How do we ensure that we're making the value offer so incredible that it's impossible to say no to? Well, number one, just make sure that you're highlighting exactly how your therapy, HRT, for example, is going to fix every single one of their problems. like, man, Sarah, I'm so glad you came in today because it just is so obvious to me that you've just been suffering from low hormones for so long. And it's insane how confident I feel that this is just going to, tick off every single one of those boxes. And we're going to have some really good symptom resolution. And the good news is we can do this, and we can do this right away. So I'm just curious, Sarah, because I love this, but I don't know if you do. Do you like saving money? And Sarah should respond, hell yeah, I love saving money. Okay, amazing. I do too. Sarah, the way we do this in our clinic is by offering a value package, right? And it's a year up front, and it's $200 a month. And it's a huge savings. We give you 20% off that original price, which would maybe be something like, I don't know, again, $225, something in that ballpark. Okay, so you're kind of already now setting the stage for, hey, I want to save you some money. I want to add value in immediately. So if you pay a year up front, and I always like to offer this because you'd just be amazed at how many people will take that offer, and why not? I'd rather someone pay me a year up front for my services than monthly or quarterly or something like that. Again, if you're in a membership type of model or like a retainer type of model, always start with the bigger price point, but break it down into a monthly cost. So for $200 a month, 20% off, or, again, well, you could say, it would typically be $225 a month, but we'll make it $200 a month if you pay the year up front. And if you do pay the year up front, I will offer a free weight loss consultation. Again, that's nothing to you, but to them, that might be huge. I will offer you whatever. You can get into your appointments, whether they're quarterly or once a month or something like that. They're telehealth or virtual. You can see me in person. We're going to allow you to text me, right? So you'll be able to text me during my office hours anytime. We're going to get back to you that day. That's a promise. The meds are included, right? X, Y, and Z meds are included. You get all of them. They get shipped directly to your doorstep. Now you just start getting into all the things that you offer. Okay. Be very specific here. Do not offer things that are bullshit. Okay. And what I mean by that is don't offer things that just are fluff, that like feel kind of useless. Like, don't say I have a piece of paper that teaches you about progesterone for free. That's not really that sexy, guys. Okay. So again, we don't want to add things that are just nominal in terms of their value. We want to add things that feel spectacular. They don't actually have to be spectacular from your perspective. Okay. So a free weight loss consultation to you might be like a no-brainer in terms of like, hey, I don't actually have to do a whole lot here. You're already paying me $200 a month, but the patient might say, wow, $300 consultation fee waived. And by the way, I'm really interested in weight loss medication. I could see that being really helpful in terms of an adjunct therapy to hormone replacement therapy. Well, now we just have a total win-win. And so when we're adding value, make sure the perceived value is fantastic. Please don't offer value that feels hollow. Don't offer free educational handouts. Like those are not added value pieces. They're great. Like they can be valuable, but don't make that a part of the package, right? It's just like a one-time thing. It's no big deal. It didn't cost you anything at all. It's a piece of paper. For all they know, ChatGPT created it, which it probably did, right? So don't make that your big thing, okay? When we are now in this conversation of adding and stacking value, make sure that you're excited, okay? This should feel fun. Like, oh my gosh, can you believe it? Like, how great is this? I love this part because, again, for me, this is a no-brainer. I'm going to make your life better. I know I'm going to make your life better because I know hormone replacement therapy. And I know that it works for, essentially everybody. We just got to find the right dose and the right administration. And once we tinker with things a little bit, we can nail this for you. So I feel really confident in that. So when I come to my sales pitch, this feels a lot lighter. This is why I say it's so important to be knowledgeable when it comes to hormone replacement therapy. You don't want to be like amateur hour. You don't want to not feel like an expert when it comes to HRT. It's a lot easier to do weight loss. You don't have to be, there's no GLP-1 guru. It's pretty straightforward. When it comes to HRT, there's some art and science to it. And you really want to know that so that, again, when it comes to the sale portion, you can just knock it out of the park. So we've stacked up the value offers. We named the price earlier on. We can now name, our monthly price if they don't want to pay the upfront cost. Okay, hey, no big deal, $225 a month. And you kind of describe the cancellation policies, and you just be very, very clear about what now is included in that pricing. Again, you already probably touched on it when you were doing the value offers, but just be clear. These are the meds that are included. These are the meds that are not. These are how many appointments you get. This is how you contact me, so on and so forth. If you want to cancel, this is our cancellation policy. In terms of a cancellation policy, please don't get super hung up on this, okay? I used to get really hung up on this because, of course, we all take great offense when someone cancels their therapy with us, and it hurts our feelings. It just will. We're human beings, and it doesn't feel great when someone says no to what you were offering, and maybe you feel like you let them down, or, all those emotions aside. It also hurts because you lose money, and that doesn't feel great. And again, I think the best way to go around this is have, first of all, a cancellation policy in place. Make it very clear to them. They should have signed this somewhere. They should have signed like a financial agreement form or something to that effect. Make sure your cancellation policy is clear there, and even in just your general consent form. They're consenting to, paying you. You can charge their credit card, the typical stuff. If they have a late cancellation for an appointment, do you charge them, or do you let 3 of those go before you start charging them, right? You can it's your business. You make that however you want it to be. But things that I don't like to do is to create mountains out of molehills. What I mean by that is if a patient wants to quit, I do not find a way to block them from doing so, which is illegal anyways, but you know what I'm saying. I'm not going to make some outrageous fee where in order to quit, you have to pay this outrageous amount because you're just going to piss them off. That's really all you're going to do. They want to leave. They don't find the value here. That's fine. They might be great people and they can't afford it anymore, whatever it is. Don't piss your patients off. I'd rather have an open door policy. Hey, Sarah, I totally get it. I've been there before. We're an open door. You've been a great patient. Hopefully she was, and would love to see you back here at any point in time. Here's a cancellation policy. Now, the cancellation policy should be something that is addressed during the initial consultation. How do I sign up and how do I leave? And be very specific about that. Okay. Again, when it comes to a patient leaving my practice, I don't make mountains out of molehills, and I don't want it to be super, super frictiony, right? If they want to quit, just shoot me a text. I just want to see something in writing that is saying, hey, Nico, Sarah here, I'm out. Thank you so much. That's it. Okay. I don't want a phone call because I need to have it documented somewhere. That's important. So if you like email, that's fine. But again, I want to make it simple for my patients. I want to make it easy. So I feel like a text message is totally adequate. When they send that text message, what is the process? How do we offload you, so to speak? Do we have one final appointment just to make sure you're okay? Do you need some meds filled so that you can, if you're changing to another provider, like we want to provide that for our patients. We're not going to be stingy there. They've paid good money and they deserve that. And last but not least, there is typically a cancellation fee. Now, this is more on the administration side or admin side of things, I should say, that fee, right? That's how we and you should coin it, okay? It's not a fee like you're being faulted for not seeing me for your medical services. That kind of reaches into a gray area in terms of legalities and whatnot. What we really want this to be is, hey, I totally get it. This does take a little bit of effort on our part to, offload you. We want to have a last appointment. We're going to fill some meds for you probably. Likely you're going to need, some paperwork done or whatever, digital stuff on my admin team side of thing. So what we typically just stick with is like a month of their therapy, right? Okay. If you're going to quit, you owe us, the month of therapy, which would be whatever it is, $200 a month, and you're out the door. Boom, boom, boom. Easy peasy. If they put up a huge fight over that, I am not in the business of getting bad Google reviews anymore. It's not worth $200. It really isn't. I'm not losing tremendous amounts of money on these people, and that's not really the game here, okay? If they want to leave, they leave. Okay. I will usually send them the financial agreement that is signed. Hey, I just wanted to show you, this is something that we talked about. If, just to kind of clear up any confusion. Because again, sometimes they might feel confused, like, oh, I don't remember that. Well, we talked about it. I documented it. Here's the signed signature. And if again, they just create a total hissy fit over that, please just let them go. Let them go. Don't make it a big deal. You're a small business. A nasty review can really, really hurt you. And again, it's most of the time it's just not worth your while. Okay. So that being said, we run through all those things. Let's say everything's hunky dory and stuff. When you get kind of towards the end of that sales pitch, if they start throwing objections at you, this is where I want you to pay particular attention to what they're saying and how often this comes up for you. So again, it's not easy to like collect all this data, but just kind of try to keep it on the top of your mind. If you feel like at every single appointment, your initial consultations, by the end of that consultation, they're throwing out phrases like, well, I just need to think about it, or maybe I need to talk to my spouse about this. And this sounds great, but I'm just going to want to sit on this for a little bit and make a decision. Probably you're not providing as much value and service and whatever. Like you didn't get the point across to them as clear as you should have. They might feel confused. Maybe they just feel like the pricing points, again, were a little bit strange or whatever. Like it's hard to tell for certain. So try to dig back through that appointment and just see, did you miss any marks there? Could you have used some analogies? Could you have, again, just made things more clear and more simple and more precise and less confusing and overwhelming? But again, if you're getting a lot of these objections, just take heed of that so that you can correct for those. Almost always it's your fault as the business owner. It's not the patient's fault. It's never the customer's fault. It's your fault. You need to find a way to make sure that you're not ending up in those positions. And just by taking inventory and practicing your quote unquote, close of the sales speech is really important. Also, again, I'm a big fan of practice and rehearsal. I practiced this in front of my wife for months and months and months, like just prior to opening and then after opening, right? Because I started getting better at understanding what the questions were that patients were asking. How could I beat them to the punch? So I sounded like a genius. And then what were the most common objections and why were they being given? Was I not presenting the value well enough? Okay, let's just say I did all those things correctly. Every now and then you're going to get some objections. That's normal. Okay, that's just life. You're never going to close 100% of your patients or customers, right? The goal is to just keep that number as high as possible so that you get some revenue and some profits. So let's say you've done all those things and they start giving you some objections. Try to pull these people back into the sales conversation. This is where it gets even more uncomfortable, especially if you're introverted or you just don't like being confrontational. So try not to frame it that way. A lot of us frame it as like, again, confrontational or like aggressive or something like that. That's not what this is. If a patient says you gave them all this great value and advice and the whole spiel, and at the very end they say, Nico, I feel like I need to talk to my spouse about this. Instead of just immediately going to, hey, I totally get it, no problem, like talk to you later, maybe just kind of pull them back into the sales conversation a little bit. Hey, Sarah, I totally get that. I like to talk to my wife too about things. I think that's really important. But I'm just curious, you spent all this time going through all these hoops, right? Getting signed up, getting scheduled, finding time to get your blood work done, paying for the blood work, driving all the way here to my clinic, sitting in front of me for an hour, going over all these things, the symptoms that you described. Like I feel that deep down because, I remember feeling things similarly to that in your position, or I've had so many patients in those same positions. I think we are just going to nail this. Like I said, hormone replacement therapy is going to tick off all those boxes. So I just want to make sure, are you maybe just not seeing the value somewhere? And maybe I just need to express that again to you, or maybe I need to frame it in a different way so that we can move forward, because I know that this is an absolute game changer for you. And I know this is going to be powerful. So I'm just curious if maybe you might be able to tell me if there was something we were missing. You're just consulting with her again, right? You're just asking her very reasonable questions. I want to make sure I'm nailing this for you. And I felt like we were like crushing it. You said you felt this way. I said, I can fix that this way. You said, I don't sleep very well. I said, I can fix your sleep this way, right? Like, I felt like we were on track here. And now all of a sudden it feels like we're not on track. And I just want to make sure if it's my thing, like I want to go back and make sure I'm addressing that appropriately. And so hopefully Sarah says, you're right, Nico, like that's true. I did say all those things and it does sound really great. I'm just, maybe I'm just a little bit nervous about the cost. Okay, great. Okay. So we're getting somewhere here now. Okay. Fantastic, Sarah. I get that. That's really, really helpful. Tell me about the cost. Like what makes you so nervous about the cost? Right? Well, Nico, I don't know. It's a lot of money. And, I've never really spent that much money on myself. And okay, Sarah, well, listen, I gotta be honest with you. If your husband was sitting next to you here today, let's just pretend he is. What's your husband's name? John. Okay, Sarah, if John was sitting next to you today and he heard you talk about all these things that you're dealing with and feeling and experiencing physically, mentally, emotionally, even spiritually, I don't know John that well, but I have a feeling you guys are in a good relationship, right? Yeah, we are. Okay, amazing. I feel like John would be like, Sarah, what are you thinking? Sign up right now. Like I'll pay for God's sakes. You need to do this. And she's going to laugh probably and say, oh my, you're right. And then say, hey, Sarah, if John was in your shoes and you're sitting next to John, by the way, I think you should totally bring John in. But if John is sitting here telling me all the things that he's feeling and experiencing and dealing with, and I can provide a really good solution for him, would you not say, babe, you got to do this? Yeah, I probably would. Okay. Listen to me. Give me 3 months. Would you do this for 3 months? Okay. I'm not asking for all your money up front. Just give me 3 months. If in 3 months, I can't make a really good move for you, if we can't create some great health outcomes, even just within 3 months, I'll tell you, I get it. And you're welcome to just walk away. But I think we're going to absolutely nail this. Could you just do this for 3 months? Please, I'm asking you. And by the way, that free weight loss consultation, like if you're still interested in that, I'll offer that to John too, right? You can just add a little extra value in here and there without it being awkward or confrontational, right? We're just trying to help. We just want to be of service to you. And if I can provide that to you, I'm going to be so pleased. I'm going to be so happy. So please, can you allow me to just kind of step in and help you? And we're giving her permission. That is really important. I talked about this at our live event recently. So many of your patients, your customers, they need permission to buy from you. They need permission to feel better. They need permission to take the leap of faith that they've probably been, pondering for weeks, months, maybe years, and they've not had the courage to do it. Now they're finally there. And I talk about this a lot too. Like you have a moral obligation to help people who are suffering. That's what we signed up for. And I'm not going to let you walk out of my door if I feel convicted and convinced and I know deep down in my heart and soul that I can help you, Sarah, that I can make a difference here. I mean that. And I'm not going to let you lose any money over that. If you are with me for 3 months and you hate it, I'll give you every penny back. Right? This is your business. Now is the time when you can start, if you're especially on the early days where you're just trying to grow, add some value in there. Offer a guarantee if you need to, whatever it is, make it happen and feel so confident in that it's unshakable and undeniable. And just try to rope them back into that sales conversation. If they push back again and again, it's okay. Let it go. Okay. They might really want to think about that. And by the way, I respect that. I'm not going to be that gross, pushy, hard sales guy. I'm not. I get it. I like to talk to my wife I really do. I like to talk to my wife about things that are expensive before I make this huge decision. It is a big decision. Okay. So there are objections like that where, again, just try to pull them back in. Just make sure that, okay, if I give you permission, would that feel better? That might be all they need. They probably don't really need to talk to their husband. They probably run all the money. If they're anything like me, their husbands don't know anything about, they probably have no idea where their bank is. Okay. So give them permission. please. And that goes for the guys too. Okay. Because they'll do the same thing. I need to talk to my wife. I need to talk to my husband. That's fine. Okay. But I just find those things to be really helpful. And again, I think a lot of providers miss out on opportunities to just show up a little bit more for their patients and be there for them and grant them some permission and offer them some guidance and all that kinds of good stuff. So guys, I hope this is helpful because I know the sales thing can be really challenging and it's not easy when, in the past you were working for a family care practice and, you're just wheeling and dealing antibiotics and, pred packs and whatever other things you do out of a primary care office, checking blood sugars. Now all of a sudden we're trying to really convince and almost convert people into this whole new paradigm, which is wellness medicine and hormones and all these things that you were told that were terrible for you are now amazing and they're going to help you live longer. There's so much lift to that. I mean, that's a heavy lift. And you don't have any sales background, so neither did I. So these things aren't inherent to us. So give yourself a break. First and foremost, you got this. Second of all, practice. Please practice. Practice with your spouse, with your best friend, with a sibling. I don't care who it is. Just practice. And it doesn't need to be a whole ordeal. Just sit down and run through it and ask them objectively, hey, was there any part in that felt weird or sticky or icky or whatever? Was there a part in there that, made it feel like I was like, better than you, or I don't know, whatever other things, like just don't be shy to get a little bit of constructive criticism, take a little bit of a blow to your ego. I've had many of those in my life and will continue to do so. But those are where, we'll really grow as business owners and as providers. And also think ahead, of course, now when you're hiring other providers to come work with you and they have questions around that, or maybe you're workshopping a sales pitch with them, you want to make sure that, you're able to speak to this and hey, let me share my experiences. And this is typically how I work with these types of patients or these types of questions and all that kinds of stuff. So I find that to be really, really, really important because again, we want to be thinking forward here. We want to be thinking, not just the next year, but the next 5, 10, 20 years, however long you plan on being in business. We want to be thinking, how can we structure everything I'm doing now? How can I maybe write some of these common objections down in a Google document, or maybe ask ChatGPT, hey, here's a compiled list of objections that I keep getting. And could you help me overcome them with some stories, with some analogies, whatever it is, so that I can close on some of these sales that I feel like I'm missing out on. It's so much in its fine details and the language and the way you say things. And the better you get at communicating more clearly, the more often you're going to win. So oversharing, asking too many questions, when it comes to the sales portion, that is where a lot of people really, really mess up. You don't want to add confusion and overwhelm. You don't want to try to impress when you're at the finish line. You want to express excitement, joy, and clarity above all things. Okay. Clarity, the word clarity is I think the take home word for today. Okay. The more clear you can be, the more precise and simple you can be, the better chances you have of getting someone to convert and to make the sale versus trying to, again, be impressive sounding and overwhelming them with data and randomized control trials and stuff like that. I almost always say if patients feel the need to ask you for those things, you've probably missed the mark somewhere, right? If they feel like, oh, I don't know if I trust you, that's fair. Look, I've only known you for an hour, but my goal was to answer every single one of your questions before you even had them. And that's a really good sign. Again, if we get through the educational part and I say, do you have any other questions? And they're like, no, I think you covered everything. Perfect. I nailed it. If they start asking me, does it cause prostate cancer? Does it cause heart disease? Does it cause breast cancer? I lost. Man, dang it. Now I have to explain all these things. And it's also going to feel like, hey, were you ever going to go over that? Or were you just going to assume that I wouldn't ask that? And now I'm going to go home and Google this and freak out. Okay. That's the last thing I want from any of my patients. So please ensure that if you feel like you get that a lot, again, I'm not downplaying like the importance of that for some people. Like some people want that, but if you just feel that's a repetitive thing that people ask you a lot, you're probably not educating them and pre-educating them enough before they come into the clinic. Okay. So that's really important. Guys, again, I hope this has provided a lot of value to you. I just kind of want to share a glimpse into how I kind of operate in my own clinic. I hope that this can give you some sense of confidence when it comes to your own clinic and to your own patients and trying to sell them on something that I think is one of the most amazing things in the world, which is hormone replacement therapy. Guys, I appreciate you listening. Again, this is the Nico Misleh Podcast. Don't forget, if you don't know anything about hormones or you feel really shaky around hormones, you feel nervous around hormones, but you want to do it, you want to provide absolutely the best, most expert care to your patients possible and create amazing amounts of revenue for your clinic. Because honestly, if you're not going to provide HRT, someone down the street is, and they're going to do better than you. And you don't need to do that. Don't give someone else your business, okay? When it comes to hormone replacement therapy, check out HRT University. That is our course, the master course. It is absolutely by far the most transformational thing you'll do. I promise you this year. It is so incredible. It's so detailed and so in depth. And I stand by that every second. You can check out all the testimonials if you go on to hrtuniversity.com and go to the master course. You can check out all the different things providers have said and enjoy it about the course, how well they're doing, all that good stuff. It's amazing. It walks you through A to Z. You can't find anything better. If you're still like, I don't know about that, hop onto my daily email. Just learn with me. It's totally free. It's a wonderful place to hang out. I provide a daily email Monday through Friday. It's just me, no ChatGPT. I'm just writing great information totally for free for you to use. It's about hormones, about medicine in general, a lot of business stuff. We share a lot of our preferred vendors there, which is awesome. So it's a great way to just kind of get involved in the hormone replacement therapy space. And then last but not least, don't forget, we have a Facebook group. It's under Nico's HRT University. If you type it into Facebook, you'll find it there. Join. It's totally free. Again, another good place to hang out and get to meet some great people and network a little bit and get familiar with HRT University. All right, guys, that's it for today. Thank you so much, and we'll see you at the next one.